Hello, hello, hello. Hello. Started it. Start हो गया. Nice. नहीं कोई बात नहीं आप सेट कर दीजिए सर. Okay, perfect. I think इतना बहुत. Hello, hello. Can you guys hear me? Good morning everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Is just respond with a yes if you guys are able to hear me. Please respond with a yes if you guys are able to hear me. Good morning. I'm good. I'm good. Yes, sir. Perfect. Perfect. So, guys, this is going to be our first class towards Indian economy as a part of your UPSC Civil Services preparation. We're going to be starting with Indian economy today. Once again, I'll do the basic salutations. My name is Ranchan Kaul and I'm going to be taking Indian economy for you guys. This is Titan 2026, right? All right. So most of you who have not gotten in touch with me already, you can all scan this barcode, and through this barcode you can get to become a member of the Telegram channel that I am operating. In which case, if there is some announcements to be made, if there are some handouts to be shared, some links, some important readings, I will share with you guys on this Telegram channel itself. All right, please do that. Please scan the barcode and get to be a part of the Telegram channel that is being operated by me. All right. So we will start with the discussion on Indian economy. What the objective of today's class would be? The objective of today's class would be to understand the syllabus for civil services examination. We'll understand the syllabus for civil services examination after I tell you a little bit about a certain topic, wherein I will be discussing what is called the introduction to economics. From the introduction to economics, I will be discussing with you the basic types of economics, which is what is microeconomics and what is macroeconomics. What do we mean by an economy? From a basic discussion on these three topics, I will lead you to the important part for civil services preparation, which is one that of macroeconomics. I will tell you what macroeconomic indicators we will have to be studying. And from there, I will explain to you the syllabus for general studies, which is to be covered as part of the Indian economy per se, right? So it's going to be a huge roundabout discussion on the syllabus itself, but in the process, we will be covering something very, very important. We will be covering the introduction to economics. We'll be covering what is called microeconomics, what is economy. Thereafter, I will take you to macroeconomic indicators. The first indicator which we'll be picking up is going to be called national income. And for us to reach national income, I will be discussing today what is called the circular flow of income. All right. These are going to be our end objectives today. After this class, you should know what your syllabus is, what are the parts that are to be covered. You should know why are we reading certain things that we are reading and how will we go about reading those particular topics. Should we make running notes? Tulika, you may not, you need not make any running notes, but if you want to, you can. Please try to focus on whatever is being taught in the class itself, right? Now, some basic rules of the class we need to establish because this is my first time with you guys online. So, in online interactions, there is always going to be some amount of latency. What that means is when I say something before it reaches you, there will be a 20 to a 30-second lag. Similarly, when you are responding to me, there will once again be a 20 to 30-second lag. So you'll have to keep that in your mind. Every time you're asking me a question, you may think in your mind that I instantly get to see that question, while that's not the case. I will see your question, but after 20 to 30 seconds. What that does is, it tends to disturb the flow of the class because you can see there are many students online, and if everybody starts to respond all together, all at once, I will look at all of these comments like it's a YouTube stream for me. So for me, it will be very, very difficult to keep a track of the questions that you're asking. So the rule of the class would be very simple, which is I am going to be taking up a topic and a subtopic. Every time I cover a subtopic, then I will give you some time to think about your doubts, to write your doubts in the comment section here, and then I will take up those doubts as the time may permit me. All right. So as far as possible, please try to sort of only focus on the board. Please try to only focus on understanding the material on the board. If you have a problem understanding, know that I'm going to be giving you some time to express your doubts, to share your doubts with me so that I can address them. Please don't try to write as I'm teaching because that's going to sort of disturb the flow of the class. If that is clear, I can proceed. Can I proceed? Give me a yes if you think you are absolutely clear with the rules. The rules are very simple. Don't try to type while I'm teaching on the board. Right? I will give you time to express your doubts. I will take your doubts and I'll club most of the similar ones and then I will address them. All right? Perfect. Perfect. Perfect, guys. Perfect. So we'll start with what economics basically means. Now, what led to the birth of this subject, which is called economics? Now, there is one thing that leads to the birth of this subject, which is called economics. And that one thing is called the scarcity principle. It is the scarcity principle which leads to the birth of this academic discipline which is called economics. What is the scarcity principle? Let's try to understand that with a thought experiment. The thought experiment is very, very simple. It is, when you go to a superstore, there are many stores that you come across. There is this Reliance Mart, there is Spencer's, there is Easy Day. You've seen all of these superstores, these hypermarkets, supermarkets, whatever you may want to call them. Each time you go to a superstore, you will find there is a plenty of categories of goods that are on display there. You may have gone to the superstore because you wanted to buy, let's say, a bunch of eggs and you wanted to buy some beverages. But as you go through the superstore, typically the superstores are also designed in a manner that they will make you walk through the superstore. They will have kept all the necessary items towards the end because they want you to sort of walk across the length of the superstore so that you look at other items and also feel like buying some more items, right? Although you have gone to the superstore with the intent of buying, let's say, a dozen eggs and 2 bottles of Coca-Cola, but on the way you find many other items that you would want to buy, right? You look at, let's say, you look at comforters, you look at shampoos, you look at perfumes, you look at many things that you may want to buy. But are you able to buy everything? Right? You may want to buy everything, But how many of us sitting in the class would be people who are able to buy everything that is there in the superstore? How many of us? Not me for sure. Will you be able to buy everything that's there in the superstore? Give me an answer in the form of yes or a no. How many of you will be able to buy everything? I'm waiting for your responses. Not you, Kamal. No. Kritika saying no. Everybody is saying no. Why do you think you will not be able to buy everything? The question is, why can't we have everything that is there in the superstore? This is a very simple question, right? Why can't we have everything? The simple answer to this question is we don't have the budget for it, or we don't have the money to buy everything. We have gone to this superstore with limited amounts of money, and we have some needs, we have some wants, we want to spend this money on items which will be of use to us. Although when we walk through the superstore, we see so many things that we may want to buy, but what is restricting us is our budget. What is restricting us is our money. Because we do not have the money to buy everything, therefore, we are forced to make choices. For example, if I am going to a store with rupees 100, if I am only carrying rupees 100 to the store and I want to buy eggs, I want to buy beverages. Eggs are priced at, let's say, rupees 10 per egg, while beverages are priced at rupees 40 per unit. Since I am restrained by the amount of money that I am carrying to the store, and I need to buy a bundle, I need to buy some eggs and I need to buy some beverages, each of these eggs, each of these beverages are coming to me at a certain price. The price of one egg is 10 rupees. The price of a beverage is 40 rupees. That means that if I decide to buy, let's say, two beverages are going to cost me 2 times 40 rupees, that means rupees 80. If I spend rupees 80 on the beverages part, that means now I am left with only 100 rupees minus 80, which is 20 rupees to buy eggs. The maximum number of eggs I can buy with rupees 20 is 2. Can you see something happening here? We as consumers went to a store. Ordinarily, we would have wanted to buy everything that is there in the store, but we can't do that. The reason we can't do that is because we are facing a certain constraint. The constraint that we are facing is the amount of money that we have, or the amount of money that we are willing to spend. We are limited by our budgets. In the budget, if we want to buy something, like, because normally we have many needs, many wants. Imagine in a hypothetical scenario, we went to a superstore, we wanted to buy eggs, we wanted to buy beverages. Eggs came at a certain price, beverages came at a certain price, eggs at 10 per egg and beverages at a 40 per rupees per bottle. That means if I decide to buy two beverages, I will have to spend 80 rupees, leaving me with only 20 rupees, and from these 20 rupees, I can then buy at best 2 eggs. Now in the same scenario, if I want to buy not 2, if I want to buy double the number of eggs, that means I want to buy 4 eggs. 4 eggs will cost me at 10 rupees per eggs, they will cost me rupees 40. And if I spend rupees 40 on eggs, This means that I will be left with only rupees 40 to spare, and from this rupees 40 I can buy only one bottle of beverage. What you are witnessing on the board is something which is called scarcity principle. The scarcity principle is the fundamental backbone of what is called economics. What is the scarcity principle? Scarcity principle talks about all things which are scarce in nature. Now, normally in our commonsensical understanding, scarce means limited. Scarce means something which is not unlimited. However, when we are deciding to pick up an important subject, an analytical subject or a technical subject such as economics, the word scarce will also have a technically correct definition. In economics, such things are considered scarce. Such things are considered scarce for which you have to give up something else. In economics, only such things will be considered scarce. For those things, in order to get more of those, you will be forced to get less of others. That means you will have to forego something else in order to get those things. Such things in economics are called scarce. In our example, both the Coke as well as this beverage which is Coke, we can imagine, and eggs. For us, these are scarce. Why? Because if we want to get more of eggs, we will then have to buy less of beverages. Or conversely, if we want to get more of beverages, we will have to give up some number of eggs in order to get more beverages. Scarcity principle talks about all things which are scarce. That means things which we cannot have unlimited number of without letting go of other things if we want to get them. Now, what things will not be scarce? Right? Is everything scarce? Not necessarily. For example, air is not scarce. If you want to breathe more and more air, it's not like you have to spend something else to breathe more air. It's not like you're wasting time on breathing and only then can you do something else. I am teaching while I am breathing. So I don't have to give up something else in order for me to be breathing. So for me, air is not scarce. Some person who is born or who lives very close to, let's say, a freshwater lake, for that person, it's not going to be such a huge task to get more and more water because he has, for his requirements, almost unlimited quantities of water. He does not have to give up anything else for him to get that water. So for him, water will also not be scarce. Only such things will be considered scarce in economics for which you have to give up something else in order to get them. The scarcity principle basically tells us that resources on the planet are very scarce. Scarcity principle says that resources on the planet are limited, resources are scarce, while our needs, while our wants, these are unlimited. We may want to have everything, but resources on this planet, on the Mother Earth, are limited. Now, because resources are limited, or we may want to say resources are scarce, this scarcity forces human beings to make choices. It is only scarcity that is going to force people to make certain choices. For example, in our case, we have a choice. The choice is whether you want to drink more beverages or whether you want to consume more eggs. Both of them cannot happen at the same time. If you decide to buy more beverages, that means you will be forced to consume less eggs. Conversely, if you want to consume more eggs, you will be forced to consume less beverages. That means you have option A, which is beverages. You have option B, which is eggs. If you want to buy more of option B, if you want to get more of option B, you will have to get less of option A because you are facing a constraint. The constraint is one that of money. Conversely, if you want to buy more beverages, you will have to get less of eggs. Why? Once again, because you are forcing, because you are working under a certain constraint. You cannot have both of everything. The scarcity of money, which is your resource, is forcing you to pick either of these two options. Scarcity principle says the same thing. It says resources on this planet are limited, while our needs and wants may be unlimited. That means we do not have enough to satisfy everybody's needs and everybody's wants. We will have to be making choices. How we make those choices? Economics is the logic behind those choices. What do we end up getting more? What do we end up getting less of? What are we foregoing to get something else? Why are we doing that? The logic behind these choices is determined by this academic discipline, which is called economics. Economics is the social science which puts logic behind these choices. For instance, if you decide to go on a trip, you decide to, let's say, visit Europe, you have a limited amount of budget. The budget for you is, let's say, rupees 7 lakhs. In 7 lakhs, you are deciding to, let's say, visit this country. This country is called Spain. Now, in 7 lakhs, you cannot manage to cover the entire length and breadth of Spain. In 7 lakhs, you may want to maximize the use of these 7 lakhs. That means you will be forced to pick between places to visit. You will be forced to pick between hotels that you want to stay at. You will be forced to pick between the food you may want to consume. You will be forced to pick between souvenirs that you may want to buy from Spain, because you are being restrained by a certain budget. If you had unlimited amounts of money, unlimited amounts of time, you could have lived in every nook and corner of Spain. You would have stayed at the best hotels. You would have visited every place. You would have all the money in the world to buy all the food that you want to try, you want to taste, and every souvenir which Spain is known for, you may be able to buy all of those. But the problem for you is that you are coming with a certain constraint. The constraint is once again that of a budget. Because your budget is limited, you will have to be making choices. For instance, in terms of the hotels where you would want to be staying at, whether you decide to stay at the Grand Via, whether you decide to stay at, let's say, a Grand Hyatt, or you decide to stay in one of these Airbnbs or a hostel for that matter. Because if you spend more on hotels, that means you will have less money to visit places, you will have less money to eat the amount of food that you may want to try, and you will have far lesser money to buy souvenirs from Spain. So you will have to work economically. You cannot spend all your money on hotels because there are other needs and wants too. So you will have to be making an economic choice. You will have to be, let's say, going to a hostel, because a hostel costs far less than a serviced hotel room, more specifically at a 5-star. You save some money here. That's how you visit more places. That's how you may have some day trips, and that's how you may get to try more food. This is the choice that scarcity of your resource is forcing you to make. how you make these choices, how you spend these 7 lakhs so that you get the most amount of benefits in terms of the number of places that you're visiting, in terms of the hotel stay being decent, in terms of you not starving yourself to death because you want to stay at a good hotel and visit as many places. You should also get adequate amount of food, and when you come back you should have something to memorize that trip out of. This scarcity is going to be forcing you to make these choices. Economics would be the logic behind these choices. That means, how much money should I spend on hotels? How much money should I spend on places? How much money should I spend on food? How much money should I spend on souvenirs? This logic will be determined by an academic discipline which is called economics. It means that if resources in the world were unlimited, there would have been absolutely no need for the academic discipline which is called economics. There would have been no need. Why? Because if resources were to be unlimited, there would have been no choice. Right? You don't have to make a choice. It's not like you have to give up something to get something else. Whatever you decide to put your hands on becomes yours. But we don't have unlimited resources. Therefore, we have to use resources rather economically so that the needs and wants of maximum people can be fulfilled, or we maximize the use of these resources. That is what economics is concerned with as an academic discipline. Therefore, if somebody asks you, what is the central concern of the subject, which is one that of economics? What is the one central question that economics decides to ask of you? The central question that economics as a discipline is concerned with is what is called the optimal allocation of these limited resources. This is the central question that economics as a discipline is concerned with, which is, since we have limited resources, how do we optimally allocate these resources so that the needs and wants of maximum people are fulfilled in the best possible manner? Economics is about constrained optimization, which means that every agent, every human being on this planet is facing a certain constraint in terms of limited amount of resources at their disposal. How do they maximize the use of their resources is what economics as a discipline is concerned with. Now remember, economics, I said, is a social science. Economics is not a natural science, right? How is a social science different from a natural science? How is it different from physics? How is it different from chemistry? How is it different from mathematics? How is economics as an academic discipline different from the rest of natural sciences? Why do we say that economics is a social science? For you to know why economics is called a social science, I would want you to first tell me, do you even know what is the meaning of social sciences? How are social sciences different? How are they different from natural sciences? This is a question that I am posing to you. Right? Tell me, how are social sciences different from natural sciences? What is the difference between the two? Since economics we say is a social science, what is the difference between social science and a natural science? Should be saying based upon societal principles. Now, fair enough. Different methodologies, sure. Vaishnavi, but in physics and chemistry also there are different methodologies. But both of them are natural sciences. Based on society, Hasanveer is saying social sciences means based on society. Sure. Related to society, related to people is what Kunal is saying. Absolutely. Give me more responses. Anamika is saying no, I don't know what to. Related to society, related to people, sure. Based on societal principles, sure. Can somebody please tell me, when you say society, what do you mean by society? OBI is saying natural phenomena is dealt with in natural sciences. In social sciences, it's about human behavior. Absolutely correct. Natural sciences have universal rules that are constant, while social sciences have principles that may change. Absolutely correct. Principles change as per societal needs and situations. Fair. Guys, you can stop responding now. I'm following it up with a different question. The question is, please tell me what society is. What do you mean by society? All of you are all correct in terms of natural sciences versus social sciences. Perfect answers. Great class. Lovely. Tell me, what is a society? Anyone amongst you who can tell me what society basically means? Knowledge, belief, culture, etc. called society. Our surroundings. Ishant, our surroundings are also natural things. Mountains are our surroundings. Our mountain society. An arena where humans reside, are governed by norms and traditions, where people live, group of community having some rules and regulations, right? Group of people who live together. Afroz is saying group of people who live together. That means in the world, if I am not very comfortable with my neighbor, is the neighbor not a part of my society? Organization of humans, group of people sharing beliefs. All right, perfect, guys. Stop it there. Now, what is a society? Remember this. This is one of my most favorite questions to ask people. What is a society? Right? Society, you will say, it is a network or a web of social relationships. A society is a web, an interconnected web of social relationships. What are social relationships? Can somebody tell me what social relationship means? Society is interaction and relationships found. Society is something which is related to social structure and the relations of people with nature. Okay. Most of you have heard of the word society. Most of you have since school definitely read what is called social sciences. Most of us live in many institutions and work with many institutions created by the society. We all know that. Therefore, you all will have some understanding of what society basically means or what society is concerned with. The simplest definition of society is that it's a web of social relationships. One question that I'm going to ask you, and it's a very, very fundamental question. The question is very simple. The question is, tell me, what is a social relationship? What is a social relationship? This is going to open up your eyes. What is a social relationship? Tell me. Muskan is saying people's interaction, relationship between a community of people having difference. Okay, it could also be having similarities, connection or interaction between two or more people, connectivity with people of our surroundings. Okay, interactions between friends and family. Why, Tulika, can my interaction with an enemy not be a social relationship? If I am going or walking out on the road, right, when I am driving, I have to take care of other people who I may just not know. I have to be very mindful of the fact that I don't run another person over or that I don't hit another car. These drivers of other cars, I don't know. The people walking on the pavements, I don't know. Right? So do I necessarily have to know them for them to be a part of my society? Do I have to be friends with them for them to be a part of my society? You'll have to be understanding all of those. The simple answer to the question, what is a social relationship, you will understand if you understand the most basic definition of social relationships. Any relationship is social if it fulfills two criterion, and keep this as a record in your mind. What is a social relationship? I'm going to answer here onwards, so you can stop responding and focus. What is a social relationship? Only and only two things make a relationship social. First, that there has to be what is called an intelligible awareness of the other. There are two preconditions for any relationship to be social. The first is that there has to be an intelligible awareness of the other. Second is this awareness of the other should have an influence on you. There are two criterion. Both of these criterion individually have to happen for any relationship to be social. Let us understand each of these, because that's how you'll understand what economics is and how is this a social science and how do you have different perspectives in economics. What makes a relationship social? First is an intelligible awareness of the other. When you say intelligible awareness of the other, it does not mean that this other person has to be physically present there and you are able to see this other person or interact with this other person, touch this other person or feel this other person. There has to be an intelligible awareness of the other, means even in your head you should think that whatever I'm going to do or whatever choice I'm going to make is going to be affecting another person also. It's not solely about me. Any relationship is social so long as there are two or more people in that relationship. Something which involves only and only you is not social. For example, my philosophy that at the end of my, you can say, my career, I may decide to become an ascetic, I may decide to become a saint, and I will give up everything in my life. These choices are inherently my choices. The kind of music that I like, for example, I like a certain kind of music, my favorite band is Beatles, that's all about me, it does not concern anybody else. Something which is solely about me cannot be social. That means only such things are social where there is the intelligible awareness of the other. That means there has to be another person or a set of persons in that equation. Do they have to be physically present? No. You should just be aware of their presence. Second, the awareness of the presence of the other person has to have an influence on your choices and on your decisions. That is what makes that relationship social. I will give you an example, the most classic example I used to give every person. Now let's imagine what this is. For example, most of us, we avoid something which is, dangerous or harmful for our health. For example, we avoid smoking. Let us take two examples, one that of smoking, the other that of, let's say, buying things on Amazon. Smoking will involve you buying cigarettes, and you may also buy other things on Amazon, right? Both of these are purchase decisions. Both of these are decisions where you're going to be spending some money to get another good, right? One of them could be a social relationship also, while the other may not be a social relationship. Let me try to explain this to you. How many of you know that Amazon is an aggregator or it's a marketplace? What that means is, many of you, when you place an order on Amazon, I'm 100% sure you do not even look at who the seller is on Amazon itself. For example, if you decide to buy, let's say, shoes, you go to Amazon, let's say you want to buy Nike Air Force One, you will type Nike Air Force One, you will see a bunch of options, you will pick your size, you will pick the color that you want to buy, you will add it to your cart, you will make the payment, and the good will be delivered after a certain amount of time. How many of you, tell me in all honesty, how many of you actually know who was the seller who sold you that shoe? How many of you? And how many of you don't even know that Amazon is an aggregator, it's a marketplace. That means most of the things which are sold on Amazon will not be sold by Amazon as the parent company, it will be sold by many retailers. For example, we are buyers, Amazon also connects many retailers on itself, and retailers list their saman on Amazon. We as buyers go and purchase these items from those particular sellers. How many of you actually know that it's not Amazon who has sold you that particular shoe, it's actually some Om retailers, or it's, let's say, WS retail? How many of you check for it? Pooja is saying nothing known. Shubhi is saying I do check the seller. Very few of you will actually know that Amazon is not selling you that particular good. It is actually another seller who's selling you that. In case of expensive shoes, if you are making a big ticket purchase, many of you will look at who the seller is. You want to see what their ratings are. Most of the times, you will not check who the seller essentially is. Most of the times, you think you have paid the money to Amazon and Amazon is sending you that particular good. Imagine an interaction like this. You placed an order for Nike Air Force 1, which is a great set of sneakers. Nike Air Force 1, you bought from, let's call it Cloudtail. Cloudtail was the seller on Amazon. You placed the order on Amazon. The money was received by Cloudtail. Cloudtail sent you the Nike Air Force 1, which you had delivered to your house. Now, what sort of a relationship is this? The relationship between you and Cloudtail. Tell me one thing. Did you establish any relationship with Cloudtail? Give me a yes or a no. Did you establish a relationship with Cloudtail? Give me a yes or a no. When you bought the shoe from Amazon, did you establish a relationship with Cloudtail? Because Cloudtail was the seller. You did. Right? Seller-consumer relationship, as Mosam is saying. You did establish a relationship with Cloudtail. Why? Because you paid the money to Cloudtail. Cloudtail sent you this particular shoe. You paid the money to Cloudtail. Cloudtail receives that money. Cloudtail packs your order, sends it across, delivers it to you. So there is a relationship established between you and Cloudtail. All of you all who don't even know that it was Cloudtail that you sent your money to, do you think, are you aware of their presence? How many of you are aware that Cloudtail existed as a seller and you established a relationship with Cloudtail? How many of you? All of you who do not even know that you're not getting this order from Amazon, you're actually getting it from Cloudtail, are not even aware of the presence of Cloudtail in this equation, in the relationship that you have established. All of you think that it was Amazon who has sent you this particular shoe, while the reality is that you have paid the money through Amazon to who? To Cloudtail. Cloudtail received the money, Cloudtail sent you that particular good. So was the relationship established? Yes. What sort of a relationship? It was a buyer-seller relationship. It was an economic transaction. A transaction where you paid money and you got a certain good delivered to you. It is a type of relationship. This relationship, will it be social? It will not be social clearly because you are not even aware of the presence of the other. You are not aware of this part. Therefore, this relationship is purely economic relationship where you pay money and you get a certain good. Is it social? No. Now let us consider the other example. The other example is buying cigarettes. Now, unfortunately, imagine that you are addicted to this really horrible habit of smoking. You are addicted to smoking. And right now you are visiting, because most of you are online students, I'm guessing most of you will be staying in your house. It is 11:30 p.m. You stay in one of these tier 2, tier 3 cities where markets will not be open beyond 9 p.m. But there is a panwadi, there is a pan shop in your gully, in your lane, which is open. For some reason, your addiction is such that you cannot sleep without a cigarette. And for some reason, you did not leave many for the night. Now you want to really smoke because that's how horrible this habit is. For you to smoke, you will have to go to this pan shop, buy a cigarette, smoke and come back. Very simple. But trust me and tell me in all honesty, when you go towards this pan shop, there will be 100 different things happening in your head. You'll be questioning yourself 100 or 1,000 times whether you should be buying a cigarette from this pan shop or not. What is the reason? The reason is that you are aware that this pan shop is in your lane. You are suspecting that this pan shop owner may also know your father or your mother or even your brother for that matter or your sister. That awareness of who the pan shop owner is and what his choice may do to you, that is lingering in your head as you are walking towards the pan shop. And the moment you reach the pan shop, you end up buying a sada pan. You don't buy the cigarette because you are worried, what if he tells your father? Right? You're worried if he tells your father or your mother that this guy came to me at 11:30 in the night and he smoked, then that is going to bring a lot of repercussions for you. So on your way to the pan shop, 100 different things cross your mind. You ended up not going to buy a cigarette from the pan shop owner. You ended up buying a sada pan. You ended up buying a sweet pan. Now, did you establish a relationship with this pan shop owner? Did you establish any relationship with the pan shop owner? Now tell me, did you establish a relationship? Give me a yes or a no. You went to the pan shop owner, you wanted to buy a cigarette, you ended up buying a pan. Did you establish a relationship with the owner? Yes, you did. What kind of a relationship did you establish? You paid the money to the pan shop owner and you got the pan in exchange. Very similar to the relationship that you established with Cloudtail. In case of Cloudtail, you paid the money, you got a shoe. In case of the pan shop owner, you paid the money, you got a pan. One of these relationships is purely economic. The other relationship is both economic as well as social. It is economic because you paid the money and you got a good in return. It is social because of these two particular reasons. First reason is that you are aware of who you are buying this stuff from. Second, the awareness of who the pan shop owner is, where he resides, where he has set up his shop, has an influence on your decision making. You wanted to buy a cigarette, you ended up buying a pan. That influence of the awareness of the other made the same economic relationship also social. So social is a broad category. There can be other types of relationships which are also social. For example, in this case, an economic relationship can also be a social relationship. Similarly, biological relationships can also be social. For example, when a child is born to a woman, there is some sort of biological affinity between the mother and the child. Of course, there is a biological relationship in the sense that the child will have to be breastfed. Everything, the child has to be fed. That's a biological relationship between the child and the mother. But the relationship is also social. Why? Because one, the mother is aware of the presence of the child, and the awareness of the presence of the child also has an influence on the mother's decision making. The mother may end up not going to the job. The mother may end up resigning from her job and continuing as a housewife. That is an important choice made because the mother realizes now that she will have to take care of the child. The awareness of the child led to an influence on her decision making that made the biological relationship also social. So, economic relationships can be social, biological relationships can be social. Similarly, political relationships can also be social. If I announce in the class that Prime Minister Modi is going to come here the next minute, you may like him, you may not like him, but do you think your behavior will change? Prime Minister Modi is going to address you in a certain manner. He is an astute communicator. He realizes that it is a set of young people that he is addressing. Since he is our representative, our chosen representative, his speech to you will of course be somewhere political because he also wants you guys to vote for him. Conversely, your relationship with Prime Minister Modi may also change. Although the relationship between us and Prime Minister Modi is a political relationship where he is canvassing for our votes, and this basis how many votes we give him, he will come to power or not. But the relationship is not just political, the relationship can also be social in a setting like this where he tries to address you as young people. He changes his tone, he changes the contents of his speech, and you as a respondent also change your behavior. Right? You may be personally having some equation for him, but in his presence, you may change or alter your behavior. That makes the political relationship also social. Economics is a social science. It is not a natural science. What that means is that the subject matter of economics is not inanimate objects, it's not physical objects, it's not objects which will respond to external stimuli the same way that physical objects do. Economics, the subject matter of economics is human beings and their behavior. And human beings are different from other natural beings. They are different from other non-living beings also, because human beings have something which is called consciousness. We are separate from other animals, we are separate from stones, we are separate from trees, primarily because we have consciousness. That means we have some spirit. We will not respond to the same stimuli in the same manner. For example, if I throw a stone from a top, I know for a fact that the stone is going to drop down, right? But if I apply force to a human being, some of you may just take that particular push. Some of you are docile people, you may not fight back. While if I push another person, let's say I push a person from let's say Western UP or Haryana for that matter, the person is not going to take that particular push lightly and he may slap me back. The same push is going to give me different reactions, different responses, because I'm not pushing a stone, I'm pushing a human being, and that human being has spirit and human being have consciousness. So human beings are going to respond to external stimuli very, very differently. Since the subject matter of economics is human beings and their behavior, their economic behavior, therefore it is a social science. In economics, you will hardly find something which may be called a law. And in fact, in many cases, whenever you have laws in economics, you will find there will be glorious exceptions. That does not happen in natural sciences. In natural sciences, the scope and the subject matter is nature or things present in nature. The end objective is to discover laws of nature. How natural sciences go about that is what is called the paradigm of scientific knowledge, which means that we will theorize, we will create theories, Then we will test those theories. If those theories come about true in all circumstances, then those theories will become laws. And once we have laws, we have discovered or unlocked a certain pattern of nature and we can predict what may happen. For example, my theory could be that sun rises in the east. Now this is my theory. This theory will have to be tested. I will wake up every day in the morning and I will look for the east direction and I will wait for the sun to rise from the east. I did it in my hometown. I will pick a random place in India. I will go there and I will once again test the same hypothesis whether the sun rises in the east everywhere or not. I will go to Europe. I will go to America. Every place I will see that the sun is rising from the east. That means I have credible evidence that sun rises in the east. I have tested my theory through observation. Since this theory works for all places and at all times, it's not like in the leap year sun will rise from the west and in a non-leap year sun will rise from the east. Across time, across space, sun is going to rise from the east and this pattern will then become a law. The law is that sun rises in the east. That means I can predict that 3000 years from now, sun will once again rise from the east itself because I've unlocked the law. This predictability gives us power when it comes to natural sciences. Social sciences are not the same. In social sciences, we do not have certain patterns of social behavior that we can create laws around them. Since social sciences deal with human beings, and human beings do not respond to external stimuli the same way in every situation across every place. Therefore, it is very, very hard in social sciences to discover what are called laws of behavior. Whenever you find some laws, you will of course find that there will of course be exceptions to those laws also. This is the essential difference between economics as a social science and other natural sciences. Therefore, in economics, you would have seen every year there will be one organization telling you that India is going to grow at a 6%. Another organization will have a very different opinion on it. The other organization may tell you that India will not even cross 4%. Some organization may tell you that India will grow at a 12%. Each one of those organizations are making their own assumptions. They are believing their own perspectives. India, comprised of Indians who are human beings, may or may not subscribe to any of those perspectives. It's the same thing as, people who are poor, for some reason, if they get a lot of money, you may imagine them to invest that money towards ensuring that they have future streams of benefits also. Like, for example, if I get, let's say, 100 crores today, I will decide to invest or spend that 100 crores in a certain manner. I will first try to ensure that this 100 crore rupees gives me returns for the next 30-40 years. So I will invest them in assets. I will also invest them in improving my standard of living. I will invest them in my skilling also so that I become a better wealth manager. This is my response to getting 100 CR. But if I pick a random person from the street, imagine there is a person who's you can say working well beneath their means, some person, let's say, who is a beggar on the street. I'll give him 100 CR. There is every chance that this person may not invest that 100 CR in improving his knowledge, in improving his human capital, in becoming a better wealth manager. The person may end up spending a lot of that money on consumption itself or just on improving their lifestyle, ending up losing every bit that he had eventually. The same money, different people are going to spend very, very differently because we are all different human beings. We have different consciousnesses. This is what makes economics very different from natural sciences. In economics, there is hardly anything which is called the power of prediction because we are dealing with human beings and human beings don't respond to the same incentives in the same particular manner. That does not happen with human beings. Economics is a social science, the social science which puts logic behind our choices as to how do we work within our limited means, how do we allocate our limited resources to get the most amount of benefit for ourselves. This is what economics is. Now, I'm giving you some time if you have understood what economics basically means. Tell me, did you understand what economics means? Give me a yes or a no. Is it clear as to what economics basically studies or what gave birth to the discipline which is called economics? Right? If somebody asks you as a statement, which of these led to the birth of the academic discipline which is called economics, the correct answer clearly would be the scarcity principle. Resources are scarce, our needs and wants are unlimited, therefore we have to optimally allocate those resources. The logic behind those resources is going to come from the academic discipline which is called economics. Clear? Perfect. Perfect. Now next thing is about, once it is clear as to what economics means, let us compare it with what economy means. Because your course material, your topic, your syllabus is not really economics, your course material is actually Indian economy. Is economics and economy the same? Is economics different from economy? And if it is different, then how so? That we will understand because your course material is this, Indian economy. Now we said that economics is the social science which puts logic behind our choices. What happens in economics is we categorize many people into different sets which are what we call economic agents. There are people, and people's economic choices will have to be studied in the subject which is economics. These people are classified based on their roles. The classification converts or puts these people into a set of different categories. Each of these categories we are going to call them economic agents. For example, there is an economic agent what we call consumers. Economic agent that we call firms or producers. Economic agent which could even be, for that matter, for example, the government. Based on what is the role assigned to each of these people, we will categorize people into different categories. Each of these different categories, we are going to call them economic agents. What is the role of each of these economic agents? The task of economic agents, which are called consumers, is what is called consumption. The choices that they have to be making is spending their money to get goods and services to consume them. The choice is called consumption. The role of firms or producers is going to be called production. Each of these economic agents will be assigned a certain role. The role of consumers is consumption, the role of producers is production. Let us first try to understand what consumption means and what production means. Now, like we said that human beings have needs and wants. For example, my need right now is that I want to get a t-shirt, right? My need is I want to cover up myself, at least my top half, so that when I come to the class, you don't get to witness something which may scar you for life, right? I can't come here shirtless. I can't come here with my top not covered. So my need is one that of a t-shirt, right? Do you think that t-shirts are available in nature? Do you have trees where you find that there are t-shirts hanging? So you could just, climb up a tree, right? Find out the size of the t-shirt, right? Try to sort of pull it out and wear it. Are t-shirts available in nature? Are they available in nature, t-shirts? Clearly they are not available in nature. Then how did I get this t-shirt? I got this t-shirt because there were some agents which converted natural resources into these t-shirts. For example, the t-shirt that I am wearing today is a cotton t-shirt. Cotton is available in nature or can be grown in nature, but t-shirt is not grown in nature. My need is to cover myself. This is my need. This need will be satisfied by a commodity which is called a t-shirt, and t-shirts are not available in nature. Somebody is going to be making these t-shirts. For example, there is a farmer who will be growing cotton. From this cotton, there will be a yarn maker who is going to be using spindles and all of these weaving machines to weave cotton into threads, into yarn. From yarn, there will be a person who will be making fabrics, the flattened cloth. And from this fabric, there will be some designer or some company which will be making t-shirts. This thing that I needed was not available in the nature. Somebody had to source something which was available in the nature, which is cotton, and convert this natural resource into something that I wanted. One aspect is called consumption, the other aspect is called production. What is consumption? Consumption is that consumers will have needs and wants. These needs and wants may not be satisfied by things which are available in the nature. That means somebody will have to satisfy these needs and wants by making what is called goods and services. These goods and services will be made by some agents who are going to transform natural resources into these goods and services. This is being done by a producer. The producer is sourcing a natural resource which is cotton, converting it into yarn, making that yarn into a fabric, from the fabric weaving t-shirts out of it and then selling those t-shirts. That means consumers' needs and wants will be fulfilled by goods and services which may not be available in the nature as is. Somebody will have to transform natural resources into things which are going to satisfy the needs and wants of consumers. The process of transformation of natural resources into goods and services which hold some needs or which may satisfy the needs and wants of consumers, this process is called production. Production is the task of converting natural resources into things which are useful to others, while consumption is using these things. That means consumption is the choice or is the decision wherein consumers are going to be realizing the use value of a t-shirt, the use value of a gate, the use value of a pen. None of these things was available in the nature. Pen was not available in the nature. Gates are not available in the nature. T-shirts are not available in the nature. Watches are not available in the nature, right? But we will need all of them. We will need a watch because we need to keep a track of time. We will need shoes because we don't want our feet to get, you can say, hurt while we are walking on all sorts of surfaces. We may want to wear, you can say, clothes because that's how culture has evolved, that we cannot just appear topless in front of other people. It's considered unwise, not the right thing to do. Our needs and wants may not be able to be serviced by the nature as is. Somebody will have to use natural resources, convert them into things which hold use for us. The task of converting natural resources into things that hold use for the consumers is called production. While when the consumers buy those things or get those things and use those things, that task is called consumption. This task is called consumption. Now, in economics, like we said, the economic agents of which are what we call consumers, the task assigned to consumers is consumption. You may want to say that this is the task which is basically about realization of the use of a certain item. Producers and firms are concerned with the task. Their task is one that of production. Production is the transformation of natural resources into things of use to the consumers. Consumers will have to reach out to producers and ask of them if they are making things that the consumers may want to use. Consumers want to get things from producers. Producers are consequently also going to ask of you that we are not going to give you things that we make for free. We are not going to be doing any of that. We are going to be only giving you those things that you may want, provided you give us something that we want. This is the interaction of exchange, where consumers reach out to firms and producers of things and ask of them whether they have things that the consumers may want, and if they have those things, can they give it to the consumers? And producers are consequently also going to ask the consumers, I will fairly give you that thing provided you give me something back which is valuable to me. If the consumers have something which the producers value and producers have something which the consumers value, this is going to set up an interaction and exchange between consumers and producers, creating what is called a market, where buyers and sellers are interacting with each other and they are getting items from each other in exchange of certain things. Now, in economics, like we said, we will have people. Each of those people will be assigned some roles. Basis what the roles have been assigned to them, we will classify them into consumers, into producers, we'll classify them into the government. What is the task of the government, you may ask? Because it's your first class, you may or may not know about this. But the task of the government, let's call it allocation of resources, which is to say, how many resources should be allocated to car making, how many resources should be allocated towards making houses, how many resources should be allocated towards making railways, bridges. These are all important decisions. The task of the government is also to ensure well-being of the people. Now, in terms of well-being of the people, the government also has its own budget. If it decides to spend all the money on housing of the people, that means it will be left with very little amount of money to spend on healthcare, to spend on education, right? The government is also constrained by the resources that it has, which we call budget. If the government has a limited amount of budget, right, the government will also be forced to make certain choices, ensuring well-being of the most of people, right? How much resources should it allocate towards education, how much towards healthcare, how much towards basic amenities of life, how much towards infrastructure, how should those resources be allocated, which departments should get how much, which ministries should get how much. These are all important choices, and these choices are being made by the government because the government also faces something called scarcity. The government does not have unlimited amounts of money to spend on all things which are produced in the economy, right? That means in the economy, we classify people into different economic agents basis their roles, and each of these important agents are known for an important economic choice: consumption, production, allocation of resources, redistribution of resources, maximizing the well-being, right? This is what economics is concerned with. Economics will be about how do producers make their choices. Economics will be about how much do producers make, at what price are they going to be selling it, how much do they have to sell to maximize their profits. Economics will be about how do consumers make a rational choice when it comes to spending their money and buying commodities. Economics will be about how does the government allocate resources. The logic behind choices made by each of these economic agents will be taken care of in this subject which is called economics. How is economics different from an economy? Not really. When you associate each of these decisions with a territory, then this territory comprises the economy of that territory. What that means is that in any economy, for example, this is Delhi, right? Delhi has a certain territory. In the territory of Delhi, there will be many people like me who are consumers. There will be many producers also. And Delhi will also have its own government. Consumers will make a choice which is called consumption. Producers will make a choice which is called production. Governments will make a choice which is called allocation of resources. When we associate each of these important economic functions with a territory, this becomes the economy of that territory. That means Delhi as a territory will have its own economy. If you are living in Moradabad, Moradabad will also have you as a consumer. Moradabad will have many producers. Moradabad will also have their own administration, their own government also, right? So all these important decisions of consumption, production, allocation of resources, distribution of resources happening within the territory of Moradabad will comprise Moradabad's economy. Similarly, Indian economy will be what? Indian economy will be all of these important economic decisions, be it that of consumption, be it that of production, or be it that of allocation of resources, distribution of resources happening within the territory of India, that is going to comprise Indian economy. So economics, you may argue that economics is the language of this subject, while economy is the reality, economy is the outcome. That means if you do not understand economics, chances are you will not be able to understand what is happening in the Indian economy. Why is banking suffering the most? Why is agriculture not growing as much? Why has our growth rate plateaued? Why is it that many people in the economy in India are poor? What can we do to include most of these people, and what can we do to include them towards their well-being? These are all pressing concerns of the territory, which is one that of India, and your course is Indian economy. Your course is not economics. Economics is the language of the subject. For example, if I tell you, or if I recite a verse, the verse says, "Dashte tanhai mein larza hai," right? When I say something like "Dashte tanhai," do you understand what it means? "Dashte tanhai mein larza hai teri awaaz ke saaye," right? Do you understand what I have said? You would not have understood what I said because you do not know the language that I just spoke. The language that I just spoke was Urdu, right? If I had to write dasht, I would have written something like this, right? Can you read this? If you cannot read this, that means you don't know what this word is. Imagine that I write it as dasht. Now you can read it because you can read the script. You know the Roman script and you can read what I have written, D-A-S-H-T, dasht. But because this word is an Urdu word and you do not know Urdu as a language, clearly you will not know what the meaning of dasht is, let alone knowing the meaning of the word dashte tanhai. How do you know what dashte tanhai basically means? So unless I know the language, I will not be able to read what is written unless I know the script. Even if I know the script, I will be able to read what is written, but I will not be able to make sense of what has been written because I don't know the language. This is the same thing which is going to happen to you specifically for a subject which is Indian economy. Because first you will have to get used to the language of the subject. The language of the subject is economics. In economics, you will have to get used to many terms, you will have to get used to many economic phenomenon, micro, macro, both, for you to be able to make sense of how a general economy functions. After you know how a general economy functions, you will then have to apply that understanding of economics to what is happening in the Indian economy. That is the what we call hierarchy of learning. You will not be able to straight up understand things about the Indian economy unless you know some fair parts or some fair concepts from economics as a subject. Economics is the language, economy is the reality. Do you get this? For you to become good at this, we will have to go through a lot in terms of economics. We will first understand the language that is being spoken. That's how we will understand what is written in the newspapers. That's how we will understand what are the matters which are of national and international importance. When you can read those things, only then will you have some opinions on what is really happening in the Indian economy. But did you understand the difference between economics and economy? Economics is about logic behind choices, the choices being consumption, you can say production, as well as allocation of resources, right? The logic behind each of these choices, each of these economic functions is called economics, while economy is associating each of these functions with a territory, right? That's the essential difference. I'm giving you some time to ask me any doubts if you have any. I'm from Lucknow, we know that. I'm pretty sure you guys will know that, right? Do you understand the difference between economics and economy now? Is it clear? And if it is not, please feel free to ask me questions. You guys have paid the money, so you can ask me questions. This is a matter of your right, right? So you can ask me questions. Just in case you thought you can't, you can. All clear? Perfect. Right? Fair? Economy puja is very simple. Economics is the logic. Economy basically means that all these important decisions of production, consumption, allocation of resources happening in the territory becomes the economy of that territory. That means, for example, the place, let's say, where you come from. Imagine that you come from Bombay. Bombay has many consumers, Bombay has many producers, Bombay also has its own government, Bombay has its local government. Producers will produce things, will engage in production. So production happening in the territory of Bombay. Consumers will buy many things in Bombay, so they'll consume things which are happening in Bombay, right? So consumption plus allocation of resources, who gets how much. All of that, when it is associated with the territory of Bombay, will become Bombay's economy or Mumbai's economy for that matter, right? Similarly, consumption choices being made in India, the territory of India, production happening in the territory of India, allocation of resources happening in the territory of India, right? That becomes Indian economy. Economy is region specific, it's a territorial concept, while economics is the language of the subject. Economics, you will write down, economics is the social science which puts some logic behind choices, for example, that of consumption, production, as well as allocation of resources, which are being made by different economic agents, that is consumers, producers, as well as the government. That is how you define economics. All right. Now, there is one person who's continuously asking me, when will you start mains economy? Junaid Sahab, I will start mains economy once I have had you understand economics as a central concept, right? This should take us roughly between 12 to 13 classes, and from there onwards we will have only mains. All right. I think most of you are still unclear about the rules of the class. The rules of the class are very simple. You will only respond when I ask you a question. That is when you will respond. Second, if you have any doubts, any problems, I will give you a time, like I explained to you what this means. Then I gave you some time to ask me a certain doubt, in which case you can ask me a certain doubt. I will address them. If you have any other allied doubts, you can always respond on my Telegram channel. We are going to keep it open for some time. You can always send those doubts in, right? So please try to focus on what is being taught in the class itself. Are we done with this economics and economy? Next thing we have to pick up on is types of economics. What do we mean by microeconomics? And what is macroeconomics? The difference between micro and macroeconomics. Now, the difference has to be understood absolutely clearly, right? Absolutely clearly do you have to understand the difference. What is macroeconomics? What is microeconomics? This is sometimes called economics of the aggregates. And this is economics of units. This will not make it abundantly clear to you as to what macroeconomics means and what microeconomics means. I'll explain to you with an example. If somebody asks you, for example, somebody gives you 3 to 4 options and asks you whether this is microeconomics or macroeconomics, the rule is very simple. The rule is, if it is not macro, then it automatically becomes microeconomics. Macroeconomics is the study of the aggregates, which means that something which concerns all of the economy. Macroeconomics is the study of those things which concern all of the economy, while microeconomics is the study of something that concerns parts or units of the economy. Microeconomics is the study of parts, is the study of units of an economy. Macroeconomics is the study of the entire economy as a whole. Now, this is the textbook definition of macro versus micro. You will not be able to understand this definition unless I ask you a question. For example, the question I am posing to you is, consider the following: A, inflation; B, poverty; C, unemployment; D, agricultural growth; E, let me pick up something, banking sectors decline. Right? I am giving you some options: inflation, poverty, unemployment, agricultural growth, banking sectors decline. The question is, how many of the above are macroeconomic indicators? Now, this is a question which will help you understand what macro means and what micro means. I told you the rule is very simple. The rule is, if it is not macro, it automatically is micro. The approach to this question would be, you will have to first understand which of these are not macro, right? Now tell me, how many of the above are macroeconomic indicators? And your options are, just a moment, let me just reduce the screen. The options are, option A is 3 only, right? 3 of them are macroeconomic. Option B is all of the above. Option C is none of the above. Option D is 4 only. This is your question. The question is very simple. The question is, when we talk about inflation, poverty, unemployment, agricultural growth, banking sectors decline, right? Amongst each of these options, how many times are we speaking on behalf of the macroeconomy, or how many times are we talking macroeconomy? How many times are we talking microeconomy? Okay, you guys will have to pause for a bit, right? Pause for a bit. Just tell me how many for option A. Option A, all of the above, B, all, okay. Option C, option D, 4 only, okay. All of the above, okay, B, all of the above. Many people, you can stop responding. Many people amongst you think that all of these options are options considered or concerned with macroeconomics, right? The correct answer to the question is 3 only. Only 3 amongst these indicators are indicators which are macroeconomic indicators, because only 3 indicators concern the entire economy. The first indicator that concerns the entire economy is inflation. The textbook definition of inflation is a rise in general price level. Whenever you are talking about inflation, you're not saying that tomatoes have become expensive. You're not saying, oh, bikes have become expensive. This is inflation. Inflation means that the general prices in the economy are rising. That means price of everything in the economy, or you will say most things that are important in the economy, are rising. Inflation is a macroeconomic indicator because inflation relates to all of the economy. If I say CPI rural economy, then in which case I'm talking about one part of the economy which is rural. When I'm saying inflation, inflation concerns all of the Indian economy. So if I say that inflation increased to 6%, that means prices in the economy rose by an average of 6% over the year. I'm not talking about a specific part of the economy. I'm not saying urban areas mein economy inflation has risen to 6%. I'm not saying inflation in rural areas is about 6%. I'm talking about the entire economy. So inflation is a macroeconomic indicator. Similarly, poverty. When I say the head count ratio in India is 23%, that means that in India, the number of people living below the poverty line is 23% of our population. I am talking for all of the Indian economy. I'm not talking about rural India. I'm not talking about urban India. I'm not talking about a specific state or a specific union territory. I'm talking about the entire Indian economy, which is why poverty is also a macroeconomic indicator. When I'm talking unemployment, once again, unemployment at a 4%, unemployment is at an 8%, unemployment is at a all-time high, which is 13%. We are not talking about specific aspects of unemployment, rural, urban, or in some states. We are talking about the entire economy. Therefore, unemployment also is a macroeconomic indicator. But when you are talking about agricultural growth, now agriculture is one part of the primary sector of the Indian economy. In the primary sector, there is one subsector which is agriculture, then allied, then other sectors. Then you have the secondary sector, then you have the tertiary sector. Now you also have quaternary and quinary sectors, right? All of these sectors combined comprise the Indian economy. And when I am trying to tell you that agriculture in the Indian economy grew at 3%, grew at 4%, I'm not talking about the entire economy. I'm talking about one specific subsector of the primary sector of the Indian economy. Therefore, it does not concern all of the economy. Agricultural growth rate will be microeconomics. If it is not macro, if it is not about the entire economy, then it is not macro. And if it is not macro, it automatically is micro. Similarly, banking sector's decline. Once again, financial markets, India will have its own financial markets. These financial markets will be money markets, there will be capital markets, right? In the money as well as the capital markets, there will be financial institutions. Banks are a specific type of a financial institution. Banks are not the only financial institution that India has. That means even as a part of the financial system of the country, I'm talking about a specific part of the financial system of the country. I'm talking about only the banking sector's decline. This is not about the entire economy's financial system collapsing. This is about one part of the financial system collapsing, which is the banking sector. Since it's not concerned with the entire economy, therefore banking sector is a part of the entire economy, not the entire economy as a whole. Hence, banking sector once again is not macro, agricultural growth is not macro. Both of them are micro, hence the answer should be 3 only. For you, it is very simple. You only have to think whether this concerns the entire economy as a whole or not. If it concerns the entire economy, then it is macro. If it does not concern the entire economy, then it is micro. That means unemployment, when we speak of, we do not talk about a sector of the economy. We are talking about entire India. Therefore, unemployment will be a macroeconomic indicator. Similarly, poverty, similarly, inflation, they will be macroeconomic indicators, because we are not trying to specify which areas inflation or which sectors inflation. We are talking about inflation for India has been 6%. Therefore, inflation will be how much? Will be a macroeconomic indicator. When we are talking about agriculture as a sector, Indian economy is much more diverse than only agriculture. Indian economy has primary sectors, secondary sectors, tertiary sectors, and agriculture happens to be one part of the primary sectors. It is one of the units of the entire economy. A study of the units of the economy is going to be called micro. A study of the entire economy or the study of aggregates is going to be called macro. Get this? Very simple. Now, if I have to explain it to you with another analogy, for example, I may say that we human bodies have organs, right? All of these organs combined comprise the human body. If I am talking about fever, I am saying that the temperature, the body temperature is on the rise. When I am saying fever, I am talking about the entire body per se. But if I am saying something like a heart attack, if I am saying something like a kidney failure, then kidney failure is about the organ which comprises the which comprises the body, the human body. Heart attack is about an organ which comprises the human body. Now, heart attack may have an impact on the body that the person may die. Death is about body, so death is going to be macro, or temperature or fever is going to be macro, because this concerns the entire body. While if you are studying the components of the body, then it will be micro. Do you get this? If we consider only chronic unemployment, seasonal unemployment as a phenomenon, then it is micro. No, it is still macro, Devarshi. It is still macro, because you're talking about unemployment. We're not saying chronic unemployment in rural areas. We're not saying chronic unemployment in Bombay. We're saying chronic unemployment in the country is, let's say, 3%. Right? Study of profits of Infosys, micro, and all services sector is macro. Once again, Abhishek's study of the profits of all services sector will also be micro, because services is not the only sector in the Indian economy. If you are saying the study of profits of the primary, secondary, and tertiary sector combined, then it is macro. Do you get this? See, one thing is, a heart attack may cause the death of the body. Death is macro because it concerns the body dying. Heart attack on its own, the study of heart attack will be micro. Do you get this? What comprises the economy, if you see this, just a moment, I think it's in here. Now, what comprises the economy, if you are looking at the components of the economy, specific components of the economy, then you are talking about micro. When you are looking at the entire economy, then it is macro. And if it is not macro, then it is micro. Of course, agriculture sector will have an impact on the other sectors too. Of course, they will. But we are not talking about other sectors combined or the effect on all the sectors. You may say agricultural sectors decline led to an increase in the price of food commodities, or it led to an increase of food prices, food inflation. Food inflation comprises the entire economy, while the study of agriculture sector's decline will be microeconomics, because it is one of the sectors. It is a component of the entire Indian economy. Unemployment of engineers is micro? Yes. Then it is going to be micro. Do you get this? Macro means you are studying the entire economy as a whole, something that concerns the entire economy as a whole. So if you are saying agriculture sector, you're not saying all sectors of the economy combined. We're talking about some components of all the sectors. In this example of the body, will it be right to say micro phenomenon can impact? Of course, micro phenomenon can impact the macro phenomenon. It can always do. It can always happen. A fracture of your hand, is it micro? Yes, it is micro. Right? Fracture of a hand, you're talking about one organ of your body. But a fracture of a hand causes you pain. Pain concerns the entire body. The hand ka study, fracture ka study is going to be micro. Get this? So when you're looking at components only, components of an economy, then it is micro. When you're looking at the entire economy as an aggregate, as a whole, then it is macro. Simple. Although they have never asked you a question on the difference between micro and macro, you should know this, because this can be a question that they may ask you. It's a little bit of a gray area. Sir, fever means it deals with the immunity of the body. Likewise, agricultural growth is all farms and what? See, if somebody tells you that he is or she is feverish, what comes to your mind? Does the person say that his hand has a certain temperature or a high temperature? Or does it talk about the entire economy, the entire body has a high temperature? Now that fever may be caused because one of your organs is failing or one of your organs is infected. The study of that organ, because the organ is a component of your body, will be micro. While fever, since it concerns all of your body, fever will be a macroeconomic indicator, because it talks about the entire body, not about a specific component. That fever may be caused by factors which are micro, but fever is an indicator of the entire body, not of a specific organ. Do you get that? I hope over here now it is clear. Infrastructure is macro or micro? Infrastructure, firstly, is not a part of the economy per se, but infrastructure, if you are talking about, you can say infrastructure growth, infrastructural development, then macro. Right? Because you're not specifying which kind of infrastructure or which sector's infrastructure or which region's infrastructure. Is it clear? Ritesh Baba, air pollution is going to be concerning all of the Indian economy. But in any case, these are not economic indicators that you're talking about. You're talking about air pollution. Air pollution, if it is about the entire economy, firstly, how is it economic? Secondly, it's an externality, right? Air pollution is not an economic phenomenon. Do you get this? The rule for you will be very, very simple. The rule for you is, if it is not macro, then it is micro. And what is macro? Something that concerns the entire economy, not a specific or a combination of components. Something which is about the entire economy will be macro. If it is not macro, it will be micro. That is going to be your thought process. Now, in our case, what we have to pick up on here onwards is, what is our coursework? The coursework is very simple. We will have some aspects of microeconomics that we will have to cover. Majorly, what we'll have to cover is macroeconomics. Once we are done understanding how a general economy functions, thereafter we will apply this learning to the facets of the Indian economy. Right? In mains, you will get questions only on the Indian economy. In prelims, you will get questions from both aspects. You will get some questions. In prelims, roughly 16 questions are asked. Right? You may imagine 16 to 20 with a 50-50% ratio. So half of the questions will be about awareness of the Indian economy, and half of the questions will be about the applied concepts of micro as well as macroeconomics. And between the two, it is primarily only and only going to be macroeconomics. In prelims, it is primarily macroeconomics plus the Indian economy. Across the last 10 years, I scanned through about 180 questions which were asked from the Indian economy section. There were only 3 questions from microeconomics, only and only 3. While half questions were from macro, roughly half, slightly more than half were from the Indian economy. So you have to focus more on macroeconomics, less on microeconomics, and then once we understand the language of the subject, then we will apply it to the Indian economy. What will we have to cover as part of macro and micro? I'll explain it to you, and you may want to make a note of it also. In microeconomics, we will be covering what is called the demand supply model. We will take up demand, we will take up supply, we will come down to what is called the law of demand and supply. We will pick up what is called market equilibrium and market disequilibrium. What does it mean? As we are studying demand and supply, we will also study a very, very important concept which is called elasticity, elasticity of demand, elasticity of supply. Followed by this, we will talk about many types of goods. Right? The major objective for us will be to come down to demand and supply, and in the pursuit of us coming down to demand and supply, we will have to discuss utility, marginal utility, elasticity. We will discover many types of goods, right? Once we come down to the law of demand, then we'll also study the law of supply. The interaction of demand and supply is going to give us a market, what is called a market equilibrium, what is a market disequilibrium. All of these things we are going to be covering in micro. This is going to take us 2 to 3 lectures, right? 2 to 3 lectures on the demand supply model, right? Except for these 2 to 3 lectures, there is nothing in microeconomics that you'll have to study. So in microeconomics, you can completely and solely rely on the class material itself. You don't even have to read the NCERT. If you are very good at picking graphs and some amount of maths, then you can read microeconomics, but trust me, you don't have to. I mean, there is absolutely no need. I told you, like, out of 180 questions, only 3 questions are asked from microeconomics. So no need to invest a lot of time in there. Whatever is important, I will be discussing it in the class itself, right? Now, this is your microeconomics part. In the macroeconomics part, what will we be discussing? Macroeconomics will be about some very, very critical macroeconomic indicators. The macroeconomic indicators we will study, first is called national income. Then we will study, which is something which is very important, which is money and central banking, or you may want to call it money and monetary policy. Then we'll be discussing what is called public finance management. Here we will be discussing budget, that is taxation and expenditure. We'll also be discussing something called public debt. After public finance management is over, we'll be picking up on what is called the external sector. In the external sector, we will be discussing something called the balance of payments. We will be discussing exchange rates or exchange rate management. We will also be discussing India's trade and investment policies. So in here, we'll be discussing external sector mein balance of payments. That means when an economy interacts with the rest of the world, how does it keep an account of each of these? What are exports? What are imports? What is the capital account? What is the current account? We'll have to keep a track of each of these. We'll have to also discuss what we call exchange rates. How do we determine exchange rates? From there onwards, we'll also have to discuss India's external trade, India's investment policies. Now, after this, we will of course have to pick up on some other important agents, right? Which is going to be, we're going to be picking up on what is meant by unemployment, what is meant by poverty and inequality. We have to pick up on these. Thereafter, we can pick up on the banking sector and other financial institutions. So here, unemployment, poverty, inequality, banking sector and other financial institutions, and one of the most important things is going to be inflation. What do we mean by inflation? So in your next 14 to 15 classes, right, we are going to be discussing how a general economy functions. We have national income. Here we are going to discuss what do we mean by the GDP, gross domestic product, what is meant by real GDP, nominal GDP, what do we mean by growth, right? How do we arrive at something called national incomes? What is the relationship between GDP as well as the national incomes, right? Various methods of computing GDP, everything will be discussed in the first chapter, which is the national income accounting. Second is money. What do we mean by money? What are the various types of money? What do we mean by money supply? Who controls the money supply? Why do they control the money supply and how do they control the money supply, which we'll discuss in central banking, or this role is basically called monetary policy. So RBI's functions, right? One of the critical functions of RBI is going to be monetary policy, which we'll be covering here, the second chapter. The third chapter would be about the role of the government. The government has its major source of revenue coming from taxation. The government also spends this money because of the well-being of people, which is one of its objectives. So we will be discussing taxation and expenditure. Every time expenditure exceeds taxation, we will have deficits. How does the government finance those deficits? Your public debt management will be an important part here, right? So this is called public finance management, basically about budgeting as well as public debt. Followed by the external sector. External sector is, the reality is that India is not a closed economy. India also interacts with the rest of the world. When we interact with the rest of the world, how do we keep an account of all the transactions which are happening between India and the rest of the world? That we will discuss in the balance of payments part. Then we will also discuss what is called exchange rate management, which means when you hear that $1 equals 90 rupees, what does it mean that $1 equals 90 rupees and who set this rate? How do we arrive at this rate? So various mechanisms of exchange rate determination we have to study. In addition, we also have to study a very important aspect from which questions have been asked very recently, which is about India's trade and investment policies. After we are done with this, then we'll also pick up some very, very important macroeconomic indicators, including inflation, unemployment, poverty, and inequality. First, getting a decent understanding of what each of these mean, how do we compute them, which bodies compute them, right? Sometimes we may also discuss the causal factors behind these. Followed by one of the most important aspects of your prelim syllabus, which is banking and other financial institutions. Now, in the last few years, when I discuss previous year's questions, you will automatically notice that previously questions from banking used to be a huge part of your prelims portion. Now they are more interested in getting questions from money markets, capital markets, basic questions from each of those sections. So that trend we will also discuss. Broadly, we will cover up financial markets. In the financial market, we will discuss various types of financial markets with more stress on money markets and capital markets and their instruments. Thereafter, we will pick up on the banking sector, right? India mein the structure of banking in the economy, in the country, what are other financial institutions except for banks, how are banks different from them, right? Then regulation of banks in India, the NPA crisis, many things we have to discuss in this part, very, very important part. This is majorly what you will have to cover in the next 14 to 15 days. Once we are done with these, thereafter we are going to be moving to the mains syllabus. But for now, this is going to be our chapters for the next 2 to 3 weeks. Do we need to study economic models provided by many economists, Shruti? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You don't have to study no economic models. In fact, I can start the classes with Indian economy while you will get exactly the same amount of outcome. You will not have to worry too much. In these classes, what we are going to discuss is going to be primarily towards understanding the problems being faced by the Indian economy, which is your main syllabus. But for us to reach there, we will have to go through many of these items, understand them fundamentally. We'll also look at previous year's questions so that you automatically know what has to be studied and what has to be eliminated. Which topics are highly preferred for mains? Anmol, let us go through the 2 weeks of micro and macro first. Once we are done with this, I will myself tell you what are the various topics that we have to cover for macro. For mains, although if you ask me, I can straight up tell you, there is growth, inclusive growth, planning, mobilization of resources, which is an important part. The most important part for your main syllabus is agriculture. It is also the part for which you have the most detailed amount of number of topics given in the syllabus, and every year you will find 3 to 4 questions straight up being asked from agriculture as a sector itself. So agriculture becomes the most important part for the main syllabus, followed by planning, liberalization, changes to industrial policy as well as their impact on the growth. Thereafter, you will also have questions from infrastructure and investment models, right? These are topics which have been given in the syllabus itself, so you don't have to worry too much. What about international organizations? Abhishek, we will cover that as a part of the main syllabus itself. In fact, when we are doing trade and investment, we'll definitely pick up on some international organizations, which is your WTO, your IMF, your World Bank, and we'll have to pick up on those. And in addition, I'll also tell you what to look for when you are going to be reading the newspapers here onwards. Which book should we read except for your lecture? I can tell you the only book you will have to read is what is called the NCERT. Once you are done with the NCERT, then class notes, and to top your class notes, you should look at your current affairs, nothing else, right? All right, if you have any questions in terms of the syllabus, do you understand the syllabus now broadly? This is your syllabus broadly for prelims. Now remember, this is primarily for prelims, right? So we will first go through these, right? It will take us maximum 14 to 15 lectures. And thereafter, we can pick up on the syllabus for mains topics, which I am going to be discussing heavily and in good amount of detail, so you don't have to worry. What should be the frequency of revision? Slowly and steadily, we will understand each of these. Now, most of you, if you're asking me about books and if you're asking me about authors, please do yourself a favor, pick any of those books and decide to read this. While I have consistently maintained since yesterday that the questions that they're going to be asking you in mains will be questions which will come from issues that the Indian economy is facing today. Why are we doing, we can say, so well in the services sector? Why is our manufacturing so stagnated? What is the problem of Indian agriculture? All of these issues will show up from here onwards. No person in the market or even otherwise has the foresight to tell you what is going to happen in the next 1 year. Since nobody has the foresight or this power of prediction that they can tell you what is going to happen in the next 1 year, how can they write a book about it? So if your approach is that I'm going to pick up a book and I'm going to read it cover to cover and that's how I become better at Indian economy, then good luck to you. I cannot say anything else except for the fact that you will be wasting your time. The only thing you have to focus on is 1, NCERT, 2nd class notes, 3rd, current affairs, when the economic survey comes, so that, and budget documents. These are the only 5 things. You should pick up a reference book, surely. I'm not going to be telling you don't do that. But use those reference books only for certain topics when you feel that you did not understand well enough from the class or you feel that you need more material on a certain topic. No reference book has to be read cover to cover for you to score heavily in GS3. And you would have seen many people don't score heavily in GS3. The reason is they don't focus on understanding. Their approach is essentially the same, which is like a school or a college scenario where they're going to be picking up a book and thinking that if I read this book, I'm going to be automatically good at writing answers, which is not going to happen. Get this? This is a brief introduction on your syllabus per se, right? On what economics means, what economy means. This is your syllabus. Tomorrow, you guys, can I have a poll? We can start with micro. We can also start from macro, whichever you prefer. So, however number of people tell me we'll start with micro, I can start with micro. If you tell me we'll start with macro, we'll start with macro. No problem. It is unto you. Sir, PDF we get is your notes, or some person watches them and makes them? I think most persons are going to be watching them and making those notes. Tell me, it's a poll. Guys, do you want to start from microeconomics or macro? I can start with any, I don't care. I mean, I can start, it's not going to affect your outcome. Tell me micro or macro. Give me a poll. If you like micro, writer I'm telling you is micro will involve some elements of calculations which you don't have to do. I will do, you'll have to understand them. Macro means macro mein you will not have to do a lot of calculations. Micro or macro? Give me a poll. Okay, go for micro. How many people want to start from micro? 2 to 3 lectures on micro, that's it. Very, very important lectures, lots of understanding from micro, and then we can move to macro. Or we can start with macro and then we'll do micro. It doesn't matter. Tell me. We can start with the macro. Only one person on YouTube is saying micro. We can start with micro, sure. How many of you want to start from a macroeconomics? How many of you want to start from a micro? You tell me this. I wish I had a poll here. Guys, you'll have to respond. इसको refresh कर लीजिएगा. Give me any chair for micro or macro. If you don't, then I will start. Most of you are saying micro. I'm not getting any responses. YouTube पे तो आ रहे हैं. Fair enough. Well, tomorrow we'll start with microeconomics. Micro, maximum. I don't know how to set up a poll, honestly. Like I was told that there is a poll that can happen, but for now I don't know how to. But when I figure out, how do I use the poll? Where do I use the poll from? This is a poll? No. I'm not used to the setting right now. Honestly, if I wish I knew how to set up a poll. But I'm guessing most of you are telling me micro, right? If you're saying micro, then we'll start with micro, not a problem. I'm saying that there is a poll here, yaar. Koi to hai. I don't know. I'll figure it out tomorrow how to use a poll, right? Not a problem. Poll the board. Fair enough. You guys, what you guys can do is, I will put up a poll on my Telegram channel, right? Micro or macro. You guys can respond in whichever, right? If we start with micro, please keep a reader in your rider in your mind. In microeconomics, you don't have to pick a book. You don't have to worry too much. In microeconomics, we are going to be discussing 2 things, which is the theory of consumer behavior. From consumer behavior, we will come down to what is called the law of demand. From the theory of firm behavior, we will come up with what is called the law of supply. And then we will interact the law of demand with the law of supply. We will get what is called the market. Right? When demand and supply, this is the demand schedule, this is the supply schedule. Now we will have demand and supply interacting, we will get a market. In here, there is a lot of learning in terms of the consumer behavior. Consumer behavior, we are going to be learning many things. We are going to be learning about utility maximization, marginal utility, elasticity, many things we are going to be studying and discovering here. Types of goods from here. In the firm behavior, we don't have to discuss too much. We will have to discuss only in the short run, which is called the short run supply curve. Right? Then we will interact the supply curve. We will have what is called the market scenario. This is what we are going to be discussing in microeconomics. It's going to take us 3 lectures. From micro, we can move to macro. Right? Okay, fine. I will decide tomorrow. It's a surprise for you all. I will come up and decide what we are going to pick up, a micro or a macro, right? But for you, my homework for you guys would be that please pick up a book. Please start reading the NCRTs. At least read the first chapter, which is National Income Accounting. Please do that. Start reading that. Yes, demand and supply curve is very helpful. So first micro, perfect. Guys, I want to give you one rider. In microeconomics, when I am going to be discussing many things in microeconomics, there will be some calculations that I will be making. When I make those calculations, some of you who are not very good at maths or who somehow for some reason are afraid of maths, you may think that, oh, if I can't do this math, I will not understand it. That's not the case. So you will not have to worry about the maths part. Nobody asks you questions from maths or nobody gives you any numericals in the civil services examination. I will do the maths only to come up with what is called this demand curve. You will only have to understand this aspect. So please don't be worried about various models, various maths. Don't worry about that. I will take care of that part, not a problem. Or we can start with macro, whichever is your cases. Yeah. Perfect. Okay, so what we can do is we can wrap up the class for today. Tomorrow it's a big surprise for you. It can be macro, it can be micro, depending upon how I feel about you guys. But in which case, what I can do is I can probably set up a poll, and basis that poll we can start something, right? Perfect. I'll figure out how to conduct a poll and I will ask of you guys if you vote for macro or micro. We'll see. All right. It will not affect your outcome. So until that part, let us for NCRT, for macroeconomics, please pick up class 12th ka book. This NCRT is called Fundamentals of Macroeconomics. This is class 12th. So if you guys don't know, you can go to the website of NCRT, you can download the book, right? This book is called NCRT class 12th Economics Fundamentals of Macroeconomics. All right. I will tell that to the team also. Which NCRT for micro? Hasanveer, you don't have to read any book for micro unless you're good with maths. If you're good with maths, graphs, functions, then you can pick up the NCRT itself. The book is called Fundamentals of Microeconomics, but you don't have to go there, right? Because it may scare you also. So that's not going to be a great start for you guys. So what we can do is we can start with macro or micro, whichever. Let me just decide tomorrow itself. Don't worry about that part, right? So what you can do is focus on this. Pick up this book, start reading it. Chapter 1, which is National Income Accounting. Micro, there is no book that you will have to read. Micro, just rely on my lectures. I will tell you how to study and what topics to skip, what to read. Don't worry. All right. So we'll wrap it up for today. Tomorrow we'll start with one of these, micro or macro, depending upon what the poll results tell me. Introductory Macroeconomics for class 12 NCRT. Yes, that's the book. Right, you can go to NCRT's website, you can download a book also. In fact, in Google, you can type down download NCRT Macroeconomics class 12. They will give you many links. Right, start reading the first chapter. This book is a really, really tiny book. So if you spend a week, you can read this entire book entirely. Right, and it's the best source for macroeconomics, if at all there is one in the market. Alrighty. Telegram ID, please. Now this is my Telegram ID, guys. Okay. If you have any doubts, any concerns, you can always route to me here. You can scan this code, join the group. I'll conduct a poll there. मेरी बात घर वाले तो सुनते ही नहीं सरयू. Wait, I'll conduct the poll. All right, chalo, see you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.